The point of this conversation today is this. Most men think that they're doing fine because they're providing for their families financially. And many of us fall into this trap of thinking that, you know what, I'm providing for my family, I'm giving them what they need, I'm a good dad, I'm a good man, I'm a godly man, maybe. But the question that I want to raise in your mind isn't to say that you're not. I'm not going to judge you. I don't even know who you are, probably. You, though, ought to judge yourself based on what God thinks about this. Is the way that you're leading your family, taking care of your family, providing for your family, providing for your loved ones, is it enough? Is it appropriate according to the way that God might define it? So I want to talk about that today, and it's not an episode to bring guilt or shame or anything like that. But like everything else, this is a podcast about practical discipleship training for Christian men who want to live intentionally. And that's really what this is about today for me. It's alignment between saying that I want to be a man that loves God and takes care of my family, and I want to actually do it. I want there to be alignment between what I say and what I do, and I bet you do too. It's probably why you're listening to the show, right? And sometimes we need these conversations to be this wake-up call that we need to hear. And again, I'm going to tell you a story here with Tozer that I bet maybe provides that for you. There are many of us Christian men, and we all are fallen. We all are falling short. There's so many areas, of course, for all of us to get better. And that's really what I hope you take from this. Let's just get better. Rather than wallowing in it or going, man, I suck at this. I'm a terrible dad. I'm a terrible leader, whatever it is, right? Like rather than going down the negative side of it, I simply want it to be a wake-up call for you if you are one of those who thinks that I'm providing for my family, they have everything they need, but maybe you find out today that something is missing or something more is needed. So let me tell you this really sobering story that I call the Tozer Trap. Tozer, A.W. Tozer, you've probably seen his name. If you're a Christian, if you've been around for a while, you've heard of Tozer, or you've read his books, or you've heard a pastor maybe even just quote him. He is a famous preacher and a famous author, somebody that you've likely heard of, but maybe have never heard this story. Tozer was born in 1919. He grew up in Pennsylvania, but he actually ended up serving in the south side of Chicago. He dies in 1963, and in fact, a lot of people will point back to some of Tozer's writings from back near his death, where he was predicting some of the very things that we're going through. It was almost like very prophetic almost, or like just spot on for the troubles that he saw that were coming, and he nails it, right? So a lot of people point back to his writings there. And in fact, Tozer had written over 40 books. You can find all kinds of writings by Tozer. He was a highly sought after speaker. He was a preacher that people just knew, man, that's a guy that follows after God. And in fact, on his gravestone, the epitaph of Tozer is very simple. It just says, a man of God. Now, obviously, this is a setup conversation. You can hear it. I've been pointing to it. But I want you to listen carefully to this. After his death, the stories about his home life started to surface. And I'm going to read from this book here a little bit. There's a book here called Act Like Men by James MacDonald. And he tells this story in here. And this is where I'd heard this. And listen to some of these stories here as I just read from this book. This is chapter 10, again, of Act Like Men by James MacDonald. He says this: best-selling author Lyle Dorset's excellent book, A Passion for God, details much that is commendable about Tozer's ministry and walk with the Lord, but it also speaks candidly about his great contradiction. After his death, his widow remarried, and when asked about her happiness, Ada Cecilia Tozer Odom, her new name, responded, "I have never been happier in my life. Aiden loved Jesus Christ, but Leonard Odom loves me." Were this all that we were to know, we might conclude that Tozer wounded his wife early in a way that made his later efforts to love her less effective. But, quote, by early 1928, the Tozers had a routine. Aiden found his fulfillment in reading, preparing sermons, preaching, and weaving travel into his demanding and exciting schedule, while Ada learned to cope. She dutifully washed, ironed, cooked, and cared for the little ones, and developed the art of shoving her pain deep down inside. Most of the time, she pretended that there was no hurt, but when it erupted, she usually blamed herself for not being godly enough to conquer her longings for intimacy from an emotionally aloof husband, unquote. While not every marriage is a happy one, surely Tozer was more attentive to his 7 children. Quote, on and off over the years, Aiden exercised his role as head of the family by encouraging times of family devotions. These never lasted more than a few weeks, though. As one son complained, the children just did. Sorry. As one son explained, the children just did not want it, and they were seldom all together for extended periods in the case. In reality, my greatest preacher was mostly a failure in his primary calling to be a husband and a father, waxing eloquent with great power and precision about the decline that he saw in culture and the church, but he was unable to see the parallel decline in his own family. Watching, but not watching at all, not where it mattered the most. Why didn't someone take him by his mystical, isolationist shoulders and shout in his face, Aiden, snap out of it? Pretty powerful story there about a guy that maybe we've looked up to, a guy whose epitaph says, a man of God. And Tozer, no doubt, did love God. In fact, his wife said that Tozer deeply loved Jesus. But if you remember that line from what I just read, the thing that really just like grabs your heart is when she says, but this new husband loves me. Now, clearly that doesn't mean that the new husband didn't love Jesus. But this is a really clear call that I think ought to give us some pause here. His wife, A.W. Tozer's wife, and children felt like he loved Jesus in the church and preaching and teaching and writing books more than he loved them. Now, is that enough? And I guess that's the question that I present here in this podcast today. He provided financially for them. His writings, his preaching, his job provided for his family. And yet, if they felt the neglect, if they felt that they were lacking emotionally, was it enough? And I just want to say this for clarity's sake. I don't even really mean to use this to bash Tozer. He clearly had an enormous impact on the kingdom of God and was truly, seemingly, a great man. I don't want to discount that. I don't want to bash him. I don't want this to be turned into something that I don't intend for it to be. I just simply want to learn from Tozer in the ways that I've learned from his books about the holiness of God and the majesty of God and the greatness of Christ. I also think that we could learn from this example in the way that his kids and his wife felt like they were neglected while he served Christ so fully. We're talking about providing what your family needs as a man today, because if a guy like Tozer can miss on this, then so can you. So can I.